Hey there, Disney fam. Neil here. We have some crazy news this week. I'm sure you've heard by now. Bob Iger stepping down as CEO of the Walt Disney Company. This is crazy. I was just telling my wife, literally, oh my God, like the day before last. We found out about this yesterday. I think it was either 2 days ago or 3 days ago. We were watching the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, and I was talking about how much I love Bob Iger and how he has taken the company to new heights, and his love of storytelling is so important. Really seems to be in line with, he tries to stay in line with what Walt would have wanted to do, because Walt valued storytelling and connecting with people above everything else, and I have felt like Bob Iger did that. I'm a Disney shareholder. You know, sometimes I listen in on the Disney shareholder meetings, and not that I have a lot of shares, but I like to be as much a part of the company as I can as a massive fan and as someone that just loves Disney. So today we're just going to talk about that. We are going to talk about Bob Iger and his successor, a man also named Bob, Bob 1 and Bob 2. So the next one is Bob Chapek. And before we get into who Bob Chapek is, let's talk a little bit about Bob Iger and what's going on. So Bob Iger has been at Disney 45 years. 45 years. That's a long time at any company. But a company like the Walt Disney Company, that's pretty cool to spend the greater part of a lifetime at a company like Disney. Now, Bob Iger has extended his stay at Disney many times, 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. He was supposed to retire over and over again, and he kept saying, no, I'll stay on. I can only imagine that that's because of how incredibly valuable he is to the company and what he has done at Disney. He was interviewed on CNBC. I wrote a little bit about their coverage on the blog, and so you can go read it there. This podcast is actually going to be even more detailed than the blog post. The blog post was yesterday, and we didn't know a ton, so we're still trying to figure things out. But this podcast is going to have a ton of information. So let's start with Bob Iger. Again, he has been at Disney for 45 years. That's crazy. He has no intention to stay on after 2021. 2021 is when he is now set to leave. He says that now is a good time. So the question, why now? A lot of people felt like it was abrupt because it was, effective immediately and all that. He says now's a great time because they have a lot of assets. Disney's expansion has grown wildly under Bob Iger. Pixar, he oversaw the acquisition of Pixar in 2006 for over $7 billion, Marvel in 2009 for $4 billion, Lucasfilm, right, Star Wars in 2012 for a little over $4 billion, and then 21st Century Fox last year in 2019 for a whopping $71 billion, yes, with a B, $71 billion. Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Fox, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. And so he says, with these assets and with the creative engines, what he calls the creative engines working really well, he wants to spend more time on the creative process at Disney, on the creative assets, and he wants to pass the torch on to Bob Chapek, which he says, Iger says, will free him up to focus on what he says is the next big priority. He doesn't talk about what that is, but he used that phrase. He also says the board has been working on a succession plan for years, a topic at nearly every meeting, Iger claims, and I sort of believe him. I mean, he has such big shoes to fill, which is something Chapek says. We'll get to that in a second. Iger says that he will be, as we know now, he will be the executive chairman. So Bob Iger and Bob Chapek will essentially report to one another. And Bob Iger, I'll use their last names as much as possible. Iger will run the board and be executive chairman until 2021, when he says he will step aside at that point. He joked, he said after he leaves, he's going to go to Disneyland. It's like, that's great. Iger also says that they aren't concerned about any confusion about who's actually in charge. They will be working side by side. Iger is, again, executive chairman. He just wants to make sure it's a smooth transition through 2021. That's what Iger says, and I believe him. It has struck me as a little odd that it happened, effective immediately, that there was no announcement. People on Twitter were speculating that, Iger might be sick, or that, God forbid, or that he might be trying to run for president, joining that, putting his hat in the ring there, joining Bloomberg and everybody else. We have no reason to believe that either of those is actually true, is accurate. Who knows? We could hear even more news soon. Who knows? We have no idea. But let's get on to Bob Chapek. So he, quote unquote, said, "I have huge shoes to fill." That is, man, that's true. Can't even really imagine trying to fill the shoes of Bob Iger, what he's done. A little background on him: born in 1960 this is according to Wikipedia. Okay. A World War II veteran and a working mother. Family went on annual trips, it says, to Walt Disney World. So he grew up loving Disney as well, just like all of us, right? He graduated from high school in Indiana, got his bachelor's degree actually in microbiology, of all things, at Indiana University in Bloomington, and then got his master's, his MBA, or Master's of Business Administration degree. He went to Michigan State. So if you're a Spartan, you can connect with him there. He has worked for a couple different companies. The big ones, he worked for Heinz in management and advertising for J. Walter Thompson before joining, again, this is all according to Wikipedia, before joining the Walt Disney Company in 1993. So he has been at Disney now for 27 years. So he's not a newbie. When he first joined, he was working at Buena Vista. So you may remember seeing on like old VHS tapes where it came up and it said Buena Vista Distribution or whatever. That's what we're talking about. He became the unit's president there. And then in July of 2006, he actually got a promotion to become the president of worldwide for home video. Right, so that's kind of a natural extension from Buena Vista. That he was there until November of 2009. So he was there for like 3.5 years. Then for 2 years, he was president of distribution at Walt Disney Studios. He became the president of Disney Consumer Products. That was in September of 2011. In 2015, he became chairman of Disney Parks and Resorts. So he has just really climbed his way up the ladder. And he was promoted to Disney Company Chief Operating Officer. He has been running a lot of Disney for a long time. So this is not like someone coming in, from the mailroom and just being like, all right, you're running things now. That's not the case. Of course, this month, yesterday, he was named Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Walt Disney Company to replace Bob Iger, who's going to remain chairman. In his personal life, it says online that he's been married for 40 years, very long time, and together they have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. So that's cool. So that's a little bit about Bob Chapek. That was helpful for me just to kind of understand, a little bit about him. So he says, he's got huge shoes to fill on this interview on CNBC. He says he's focused on direct-to-consumer. He's going to keep an eye out for disruption in the marketplace. He used the word disruption a lot. They fully intend to follow in Bob's footsteps and in his path, at least for a while. He says it's certainly a privilege to have Bob Iger around. I mean, absolutely. He says it's about keeping the same path, but that over time, in any company, in any field, change is inevitable, whether it's merchandise or parks or direct-to-consumer or whatever. Direct-to-consumer is like Disney+. And he says it's about recognizing when we need to change and when we need to shift. And he ran Parks and Consumer Products Division for a long time. So he's no newbie. He was also asked about Hong Kong and Shanghai, those parks being closed due to the coronavirus. He says, it's just a bump in the road. We're gonna move forward. But that's it. So that is Bob Iger and Bob Chapek, one CEO, one Bob to another. And I'm interested to see what happens. Let me know what you guys think. Shoot me a Twitter message at me at @DSForDisney_. And let me know what you're thinking about this. I think it's really interesting. Guys, that's all for today. I really enjoyed learning a lot about both Bobs, and I hope that you did too. Make sure, if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to this podcast and give me a 5-star review if you like it, and let me know what you like. And I will talk to you again next time. Have a magical day.